Sarah Martinez pushed her cleaning cart down the long hallway of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Her white uniform was clean and pressed, just like every morning when she started her shift. She had been working at this job for 3 years now. Every day was the same. Clean the rooms, change the sheets, vacuum the floors, and move on to the next room. The Grand Plaza Hotel was one of the nicest places in the city. Rich people stayed here when they came to town for business meetings or fancy events. Sarah cleaned their rooms and picked up their expensive clothes from the floor. She never complained about her job. She needed the money. Sarah was 27 years old. She had long black hair that she always kept tied back in a neat bun while she worked. Her brown eyes were kind but tired. She worked hard every day to support her family. Her younger brother was in college, and her sister was finishing high school. Sarah wanted them to have the chances she never had. The hotel lobby was Sarah's favorite part of the building. It had tall windows that let in lots of sunlight. There were comfortable chairs where guests could sit and read newspapers. Beautiful paintings hung on the walls. But the thing Sarah loved most was the piano. The piano sat in the corner of the lobby near the big windows. It was a beautiful black grand piano that shined like a mirror. Every evening at 6 o'clock, a man named Robert came to play music for the hotel guests. He wore a black suit and played classical music. The guests would stop talking and listen to his beautiful playing. Sarah always found reasons to be near the lobby when Robert played. She would dust the same table 3 times just to hear the music. She would clean the windows that were already spotless. The other workers thought she was just being extra careful with her cleaning. They did not know the real reason Sarah stayed close to the piano. When Sarah was a little girl, she had played piano too. Her grandmother had an old piano in her small house. Sarah learned to play when she was only 5 years old. Her grandmother taught her simple songs at first. Then Sarah learned harder pieces. She was very good at playing piano. Sarah's grandmother used to say that Sarah had magic in her fingers. When Sarah played, people would stop what they were doing and listen. Neighbors would come over just to hear the little girl play. Sarah won contests at school and at the community center. Everyone said she would be a famous piano player one day. But when Sarah was 12 years old, her grandmother died. The family had to sell the piano to pay for the funeral. Sarah's parents were poor. They worked long hours at factory jobs. There was no money for piano lessons or a new piano. Sarah had to stop playing music and help take care of her younger brother and sister for 15 years. Sarah had not played piano. Sometimes she dreamed about it. She would wake up and feel sad that the music was only in her dreams. She missed the feeling of the keys under her fingers. She missed the way music made her feel happy and free. Now, as she cleaned the hotel, Sarah would watch Robert play every evening. She knew all the songs he played. Her fingers would move quietly, playing along with the music that only she could hear. She never told anyone about this. It was her secret. One Friday evening, everything changed. Sarah was cleaning the lobby windows when her boss, Mr. Peterson, came running toward the piano area. He looked worried and upset. His face was red and he was talking fast on his cell phone. "What do you mean he can't come?" Mr. Peterson said into the phone. "This is our busiest weekend of the year. We have important guests staying here. They expect live music in the lobby." Sarah stopped cleaning and listened. Robert, the piano player, was sick. He could not come to work for the whole weekend. Mr. Peterson needed to find someone else to play piano right away. "There has to be someone," Mr. Peterson said. "Check with all the music schools, call the other hotels, see if their piano players can work extra hours." Sarah watched Mr. Peterson make phone call after phone call. No one could help. All the good piano players were already working at other places. It was Friday night of a 3-day holiday weekend. Every hotel and restaurant in the city needed music. Mr. Peterson sat down in one of the lobby chairs. He looked defeated. Sarah had never seen her boss look so worried. The Grand Plaza Hotel was famous for having live piano music every evening. Important guests were arriving soon. They would expect to hear beautiful music when they came down to the lobby for drinks and dinner. Sarah finished cleaning the windows. She put her cleaning supplies back on her cart. She should go home now. Her shift was over. But she could not stop thinking about the piano sitting there with no one to play it. Sarah had never talked much to Mr. Peterson. He was the hotel manager. She was just a cleaning lady. But she could see how upset he was about the piano problem. She knew how much the evening music meant to the hotel guests. Sarah walked slowly toward Mr. Peterson. Her heart was beating fast. She was nervous. She had never done anything like this before. But she thought about the beautiful piano that would sit silent all weekend. She thought about the guests who would miss hearing music with their dinner. "Excuse me, Mr. Peterson," Sarah said quietly. Mr. Peterson looked up from his chair. He seemed surprised that Sarah was talking to him. "Yes, Sarah, what is it?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I heard about the piano player problem. I know this might sound strange, but I can play piano a little bit. Maybe I could help until you find someone else." Mr. Peterson stared at Sarah. He had worked with her for 3 years. She was a good worker, always on time, always polite. But he had never heard her mention anything about music. "You can play piano?" he asked. "Yes, sir, just simple songs. Nothing fancy, but maybe it would be better than no music at all." Mr. Peterson thought about this. He was running out of options. The weekend was starting in a few hours. Maybe Sarah could play some basic songs quietly in the background. It would not be as good as Robert's playing, but it was better than nothing. "What kind of songs do you know?" Mr. Peterson asked. "I know some old songs that people like, simple melodies. I could play softly so people can still talk and enjoy their dinner." Mr. Peterson looked at the piano, then back at Sarah. He was desperate. He had to try something. "All right, Sarah. Thank you for offering to help. Can you start tonight at 6 o'clock? Just play some quiet background music. Nothing too complicated. And if it doesn't work out, we'll figure something else out tomorrow." Sarah nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll do my best." As Sarah walked home to change clothes, she felt excited and scared at the same time. She had not played piano in front of people for 15 years. But tonight she would sit at the beautiful grand piano in the hotel lobby. Tonight she would make music again. Sarah walked home through the busy city streets. Her small apartment was only 6 blocks from the hotel. She had chosen to live close to work so she could walk instead of paying for bus fare. Every dollar mattered in her family. As she climbed the stairs to her 3rd-floor apartment, Sarah's mind was racing. She could not believe what had just happened. She had offered to play piano at the Grand Plaza Hotel. What was she thinking? She had not played piano in 15 years. What if she had forgotten how? What if she embarrassed herself in front of all those important hotel guests? Sarah opened her apartment door and stepped inside. The apartment was small, but clean. She shared it with her younger sister, Maria, who was 18 and in her last year of high school. Their brother Carlos was away at college, but he came home on weekends sometimes. "Sarah, you're home early," Maria called from the kitchen. She was sitting at the small table doing homework. "Where's the piano?" Sarah asked suddenly. Maria looked confused. "What piano?" "We don't have a piano. The old one. The little upright piano from Grandma's house." "What happened to it after we moved here?" Maria thought for a moment. "Oh, that old thing. Mom put it in your bedroom closet years ago. She said it was broken and took up too much space, but she couldn't throw it away." "Why?" Sarah rushed to her bedroom and opened the closet door. Behind her winter coats and old boxes, she found it. The small upright piano from her grandmother's house. It was dusty and the wood was scratched, but it was still there. Sarah and Maria worked together to pull the piano out of the closet. It was heavy, but they managed to move it to the corner of Sarah's bedroom near the window. Sarah found an old cloth and wiped the dust off the keys. "Sarah, what is going on?" Maria asked. "Why do you suddenly want this old piano?" Sarah sat down on the edge of her bed and told Maria the whole story. She explained about Robert being sick, about Mr. Peterson needing someone to play piano, and about her offer to help. "You're going to play piano at the Grand Plaza Hotel?" Maria asked, her eyes wide. Sarah, that's amazing. But can you still play? It's been so long. Sarah looked at the piano keys. They were yellow with age, and some of them stuck when she pressed them down, but they still made sound. Sarah placed her fingers on the keys and played a simple scale. The notes were out of tune, but the muscle memory was still there. Her fingers remembered where to go. I think I can still play, Sarah said quietly. But I'm scared. What if I make mistakes? What if the guests don't like my playing? You have to try, Maria said. This could be your chance, Sarah. You always loved playing piano. Maybe this is meant to happen. Sarah spent the next 3 hours practicing on the old piano. At first, her fingers felt stiff and clumsy, but slowly the movements came back to her. She started with simple songs she remembered from childhood. Then she tried some of the classical pieces she used to play for her grandmother. The piano was badly out of tune, but Sarah could hear the melodies in her mind. She remembered every note, every rhythm, every feeling that the music gave her. It was like meeting an old friend after many years apart. Sarah played songs by Mozart and Bach. She played folk songs and hymns. She played the pieces that Robert performed every evening at the hotel. As she played, 15 years of silence melted away. The music was still inside her, waiting to come out. Sarah, you sound wonderful, Maria said from the doorway. I had forgotten how beautiful your playing was. Sarah smiled but kept playing. She was remembering now. When she was young, music had been everything to her. She had dreamed of playing piano in concert halls, of traveling the world and sharing her music with people everywhere. Those dreams had died when her grandmother passed away and the family had to sell the piano. But tonight, those dreams were waking up again. Sarah looked at the clock. It was 5 o'clock. She needed to get ready for work. She had told Mr. Peterson she would start playing at 6. She was nervous, but she was also excited. For the first time in 15 years, she would play piano for other people. Sarah took a shower and put on her best dress. It was a simple black dress that she wore to church on Sundays. She brushed her long hair and let it hang loose around her shoulders instead of pulling it back in her usual work bun. She looked at herself in the mirror. She looked different. She looked like someone who was about to make music. Good luck, Sarah, Maria said as Sarah left the apartment. I know you'll be wonderful. Sarah walked back to the hotel. The evening air was cool and fresh. The city lights were starting to come on as the sun set. Sarah felt like she was walking toward something important, something that would change her life. When Sarah arrived at the hotel, she went to the employee entrance like always. But then she stopped. Tonight, she was not coming to work as a cleaning lady. Tonight, she was coming to work as a piano player. She decided to go through the main entrance, like the guests did. The hotel lobby looked different in the evening light. The chandeliers were glowing softly. Well-dressed guests were sitting in the comfortable chairs, talking and laughing. Some were reading newspapers or looking at their phones. Others were waiting for friends to join them for dinner. Sarah walked toward the piano. It looked even more beautiful in the evening light. The black wood gleamed, and the keys looked like perfect white and black teeth. Sarah had cleaned this piano many times, but she had never sat down to play it. Mr. Peterson saw Sarah coming and walked over to meet her. Sarah, you look very nice, he said. Are you ready for this? I think so, Sarah said. I practiced this afternoon. I'll play quietly so I don't disturb the guests. That's perfect, Mr. Peterson said. Just keep it simple and soft. Background. Music is what we need. Thank you again for helping us out. Sarah sat down at the piano bench. She adjusted the height and position of the seat. She placed her hands on the keys. They felt cool and smooth under her fingers. For a moment, Sarah felt afraid. What if she had forgotten how to play? What if her fingers did not work the way they used to? What if she embarrassed herself and lost her job? But then Sarah remembered her grandmother's words from long ago. Music is not something you forget, Mia. It lives in your heart. When you sit down to play, just let your heart speak through your fingers. Sarah took a deep breath. She thought about her grandmother, about the little girl who used to play piano in the small house across town. She thought about all the years of silence, and all the music that had been waiting inside her. Sarah pressed the keys and began to play. The first notes floated softly across the hotel lobby. The sound was pure and sweet. Sarah was making music again. Sarah's first notes echoed softly through the hotel lobby. She had chosen to start with Moon River, a gentle song that most people knew and loved. Mr. Peterson had told her to keep the music simple and quiet. He wanted background music that would not disturb the guests while they talked and enjoyed their evening. Sarah played the melody exactly as she remembered it from the radio. She kept her touch light on the keys. The music was soft and pleasant, just what Mr. Peterson had asked. FOR. She tried to make herself invisible, to blend into the background like she did when she cleaned the rooms. At first, the guests in the lobby did not seem to notice the music. They continued their conversations just as they had before. A businessman in an expensive suit was talking loudly on his cell phone near the front desk. A group of women in elegant dresses were laughing about something that had happened at their meeting that day. An elderly couple was reading travel brochures about places they wanted to visit. Sarah felt relieved. This was exactly what she was supposed to do. Play simple background music that people could ignore. She was doing her job correctly. Mr. Peterson would be happy, and she would help the hotel through the weekend until they could find a real piano player to replace Robert. But as Sarah played, something began to happen inside her. The music felt good under her fingers. The piano was so much better than the old broken instrument in her bedroom. This was a real concert piano, perfectly tuned and beautifully maintained. Every note rang clear and true. Sarah finished Moon River and moved on to another simple song, The Way You Look Tonight. She played it just like the first song, soft and basic, but her fingers were remembering more now. They were remembering the feeling of making real music, not just background noise. Mr. Peterson watched Sarah from across the lobby. She was doing exactly what he had asked. The music was pleasant but not distracting. The guests seemed comfortable. He began to relax. Maybe this weekend would work out after all. Sarah played several more simple songs. Autumn Leaves, Fly Me to the Moon, and Georgia on My Mind. She kept them all basic and quiet. But with each song she felt more confident. Her fingers were moving more smoothly. The music was coming back to her like water returning to a dry riverbed. 20 minutes passed. Sarah was supposed to play for 1 hour, then take a break. She started another song, Misty, one of her grandmother's favorites. Sarah had played this song hundreds of times when she was young. She knew every note by heart. As Sarah played Misty, something changed. Without thinking about it, she added a small decoration to the melody. Just a tiny flourish, a grace note that made the song more beautiful. It was such a small change that most people would not even notice it, but Sarah noticed. And something woke up inside her. Sarah had been holding back her real abilities. She had been playing like someone who barely knew how to make music. But Sarah was not a beginner. She was a pianist who had been forced to stop playing, but who had never stopped being a musician. The next song Sarah chose was Yesterday by the Beatles. She started it simply, just like the others. But as she played, more decorations crept in. A richer harmony here, a more interesting rhythm there. Her left hand began to play a more complex bass line. Her right hand added subtle embellishments. To the melody, Sarah was still playing softly. The music was still gentle and appropriate for a hotel lobby, but now it was also beautiful in a way that made people want to listen more carefully. The businessman who had been talking loudly on his phone found himself speaking more quietly. The group of women discovered that their conversation had paused as they unconsciously listened to the music. The elderly couple looked up from their travel brochures and smiled at each other. Sarah moved into The Girl from Ipanema, a bossa nova song with a gentle Latin rhythm. Her fingers found the syncopated beat naturally. She added jazz harmonies that she had learned years ago from a library book about piano playing. The song swayed and danced under her hands. Mr. Peterson noticed that something was different. The music was still background music, but it was better background music than he had expected. Sarah was playing with more skill than she had claimed to have. He wondered if she had been modest about her abilities or if she was just warming up and getting more comfortable. Sarah felt like she was walking along the edge of a cliff. On one side was safety, playing simple music the way Mr. Peterson expected. On the other side was danger, letting her real musical abilities show. If she played too well, people might ask questions. They might wonder how a hotel cleaning lady had learned to play piano so beautifully, but the music was calling to her. Every song made her remember how much she loved playing piano. Every note made her want to play the next note even more beautifully. It was like trying to speak in whispers when you wanted to sing at the top of your voice. Sarah chose her next song carefully. Blue Moon, a classic jazz standard. She would play it simply, she told herself. Just the basic melody and simple chords. Nothing fancy, but as soon as Sarah's fingers touched the keys, the song began to grow. The melody became richer. The harmonies became more sophisticated. Her left hand found a walking bass line that Robert, the regular piano player, never used. Her right hand discovered embellishments that turned the simple tune into something magical. Sarah was not thinking about Mr. Peterson's instructions anymore. She was not thinking about being a cleaning lady who was just helping out for the weekend. She was thinking about the music. She was thinking about how much she had missed this feeling of creating something beautiful with her hands and her heart. The elderly couple stopped reading their brochures completely. The businessman ended his phone call and moved closer to the piano. The group of women fell silent, listening to the music with growing amazement. Sarah finished Blue Moon and sat quietly for a moment. She could feel that something had changed in the lobby. The room felt different. People were listening now, really listening in a way they had not been before. Sarah looked around the lobby. Several guests were looking at her with curious expressions. They seemed surprised by what they were hearing. Mr. Peterson was watching her too, but his expression was harder to read. Sarah realized she had a choice to make. She could go back to playing simple background music for the rest of the evening. She could be safe and invisible, just like she had been for the past 3 years. Or she could continue letting the music grow, letting her real abilities show. Sarah thought about her grandmother, who had always told her that music was a gift meant to be shared. She thought about all the years she had spent in silence, cleaning other people's rooms while her heart ached to make music. She thought about this beautiful piano that deserved to be played by someone who truly loved it. Sarah placed her hands on the keys again. She had made her choice. Sarah's hands rested on the piano keys for just a moment. The lobby had grown quieter than before. Even the background sounds of the hotel seemed to fade away. Sarah could feel people watching her, waiting to hear what she would play next. She had been playing simple background music for 30 minutes. That was what Mr. Peterson wanted. That was what she was supposed to do. But something inside Sarah was calling for more. 15 years of silence had built up like water behind a dam, and now the dam was starting to crack. Sarah began to play Moon River again, the same song she had started with. But this time she did not hold back. This time she let her fingers remember what they really knew how to do. The simple melody of Moon River began to bloom under Sarah's hands like a flower opening in the morning sun. She played the main tune, but now it was decorated with delicate ornaments that made each note sparkle. Her left hand found rich, complex chords that supported the melody like a beautiful foundation supporting a house. The transformation was immediate and stunning. What had been pleasant background music suddenly became something that demanded attention. Sarah was not just playing Moon River anymore. She was creating a masterpiece, turning a simple song into a work of art. The businessman who had been making phone calls stopped in the middle of dialing a number. His mouth fell open slightly as he heard the music change from ordinary to extraordinary. In the space of a few notes, he had heard professional pianists before, but this was something special. The group of women who had been chatting about their day found their conversation dying away completely. One of them, a music teacher from the local university, recognized immediately that she was hearing something remarkable. This was not the playing of an amateur or even a competent professional. This was the playing of someone with true genius. Sarah's fingers moved across the keys with perfect control and grace. Every note was exactly where it needed to be. The rhythm flowed like water, sometimes rushing forward, sometimes slowing down to savor a beautiful moment. The dynamics moved from whisper-soft to warm and full, painting the melody with different colors and emotions. As Sarah played, she felt herself coming alive in a way she had not experienced for 15 years. This was who she really was. Not a hotel cleaning lady, not someone who just helped out in emergencies. She was a musician. She was an artist. She was someone who could take a simple song and transform it into something that touched people's hearts. The elderly couple had completely forgotten about their travel brochures. They were holding hands now, listening to the music with tears in their eyes. The song reminded them of their own youth, of dancing together when they first met 50 years ago. But it was more than nostalgia. Sarah's playing was so beautiful that it made them feel like they were hearing Moon River for the first time. Mr. Peterson stood near the front desk, watching and listening with growing amazement. This was not what he had expected when he asked Sarah to play simple background music. This was professional-level playing, concert-quality music that belonged in a symphony hall, not a hotel lobby. But Mr. Peterson was also a businessman, and he could see the effect Sarah's playing was having on his guests. People were putting down their phones and newspapers. Conversations were stopping. Everyone in the lobby was listening to the music with complete attention. This was not what he had planned, but it was clearly something special. Sarah finished her enhanced version of Moon River and moved seamlessly into another song. This time she chose Autumn Leaves, but again she did not play it simply. She played it as a jazz ballad with sophisticated harmonies and subtle rhythm changes that showed her deep understanding of music. More people were gathering in the lobby now. Word was spreading through the hotel that something unusual was happening. Near the piano, hotel guests who had been in their rooms came down to see what was going on. Staff members found excuses to pass through the lobby so they could listen. Sarah was completely absorbed in the music now. She had forgotten about Mr. Peterson's instructions to keep things simple. She had forgotten about being nervous or worried, about making mistakes. All she knew was the music flowing through her fingers and the feeling of joy that came from expressing herself through the piano. The next song Sarah chose was more challenging. She began to play Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, one of the most beautiful classical pieces ever written. This was not background music at all. This was concert repertoire, music that required years of training and natural talent to play. Well, Sarah's performance of the Chopin Nocturne was breathtaking. Her technique was flawless, her interpretation was mature and deeply felt. She played with the sensitivity of someone who understood not just the notes but the emotions behind them. The melody sang out with a pure, sweet tone that filled the entire lobby. The silence in the lobby was now complete. Everyone had stopped what they were doing to listen. Some people had moved closer to the piano to get a better view of this mysterious pianist who had appeared from nowhere. Others remained in their seats, but all conversation had ceased. A young girl who was staying at the hotel with her parents tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," she whispered, "is that an angel playing piano?" Her mother could not answer. She was too amazed by what she was hearing to speak. Sarah finished the Chopin Nocturne with a delicate, fading ending that seemed to hang in the air like perfume. For a moment, the lobby was completely silent. Then, spontaneously, people began to applaud. The applause started with just one person, then spread quickly through the crowd. Soon everyone in the lobby was clapping, some of them standing up to show their appreciation. This was not the polite, quiet applause that background music might receive. This was the enthusiastic response that people give to a great performance. Sarah looked up from the piano keys, startled by the applause. She had been so lost in the music that she had almost forgotten where she was. The sight of all these people watching her, clapping for her, brought her back to reality with a shock. She saw Mr. Peterson standing near the front desk, his expression unreadable. She saw the faces of the hotel guests all looking at her with admiration and surprise. She realized that she had completely abandoned the simple background music she was supposed to play. Instead, she had revealed her true abilities as a pianist. For a moment, Sarah felt afraid. Had she made a terrible mistake? Would Mr. Peterson be angry that she had not followed his instructions? Would she lose her job for playing too well? But then Sarah looked at the faces of the people around her. She saw joy, amazement, and appreciation. She saw people who had been touched by the music she had created. She realized that she had given these people something beautiful, something that had made their evening special. Sarah made a decision. She had come this far. She had already revealed her secret. There was no going back now to pretending to be just a cleaning lady who could play a few simple songs. Sarah turned back to the piano. She placed her hands on the keys again. If she was going to be discovered, if this was the end of her hidden life, then she would make it count. She would play one more piece, and she would play it with everything she had. Sarah began the opening notes of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, one of the most dramatic and technically demanding pieces in the classical piano repertoire. This was music that only the most skilled pianists could play well. This was music that would leave no doubt about who Sarah really was. The opening chords of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor thundered through the hotel lobby like a storm breaking over the ocean. Sarah's hands moved with power and precision, striking the keys with a force that made the entire piano sing. This was not gentle background music. This was dramatic, passionate music that commanded every person's complete attention. The change in the room was immediate and electric. If people had been impressed before, now they were absolutely stunned. The Rachmaninoff Prelude was one of the most difficult pieces in classical music. It required not only perfect technique, but also deep musical understanding and emotional maturity. Most piano students needed years of training before they could even attempt this piece. Sarah played it like she had been born to perform it. Her fingers flew across the keys with incredible speed and accuracy. The complex rhythms and harmonies flowed effortlessly from her hands. She played with the confidence of someone who had performed this piece hundreds of times, though in reality, she had only played it on her grandmother's old piano when she was a teenager. The music filled every corner of the lobby. It was powerful enough to be heard clearly, but Sarah's touch was so controlled that even the loudest passages were musical rather than harsh. She knew exactly how much force to use for each note, how to balance the melody against the accompaniment, how to shape each phrase to maximum emotional effect. People throughout the hotel began to notice the music. Guests who were in the restaurant heard it and came out to see what was happening. People waiting for elevators forgot about going to their rooms and walked toward the lobby instead. Hotel staff members abandoned their duties to listen to this incredible performance. The young girl who had earlier asked if an angel was playing piano now stood as close to the piano as her parents would allow. Her eyes were wide with wonder as she watched Sarah's hands move across the keys. She had never seen anything like this before. She had never imagined that music could be so powerful and beautiful. The businessman who had been making phone calls was now completely transfixed. He was a successful man who had traveled all over the world and heard famous musicians perform in concert halls and opera houses. But he had never heard anyone play with the combination of technical skill and emotional depth that Sarah was displaying right now. The group of women that included the music teacher were whispering to each other in amazement. The teacher kept shaking her head in disbelief. "I've been teaching piano for 20 years, she murmured to her friends. "I've heard students from the best conservatories in the country. This woman plays better than most of my graduate students." Mr. Peterson stood frozen near the front desk. He was completely overwhelmed by what he was witnessing. When he had asked Sarah to play simple background music, he had never imagined that she possessed this level of musical ability. This was not the playing of an amateur who knew a few songs. This was the playing of a true artist, someone who belonged on the world's greatest stages. Sarah was lost in the music now. All her fears and worries had disappeared. She was not thinking about her job or about what people might think of her. She was only thinking about the music, about expressing every emotion and every nuance that Rachmaninoff had written into this incredible piece. The prelude moved through its different sections like chapters in a dramatic story. There were moments of quiet beauty where Sarah's touch became gentle and singing. There were passages of building tension where the music seemed to climb higher and higher toward an explosive climax. And there were moments of pure virtuosity where Sarah's fingers moved so quickly that they seemed to blur. More and more people gathered in the lobby. Some were hotel guests, but others were people from the street who had heard the music through the open windows and come inside to see what was happening. A small crowd was forming outside the hotel entrance, with people pressing their faces against the glass to catch a glimpse of the pianist. Among the growing crowd was Dr. Hélène Vasquez, a retired piano professor who was staying at the hotel for a music education conference. Dr. Vasquez had taught at some of the most prestigious music schools in the country. She had worked with incredibly talented students and had performed with famous orchestras. She knew great piano playing when she heard it. Dr. Vasquez pushed through the crowd to get closer to the piano. She needed to see who was creating this extraordinary music. When she finally got a clear view of Sarah, she was shocked. This was not what she had expected at all. The woman at the piano was young, probably in her 20s. She was dressed simply in a black dress that looked like something a waitress or hotel worker might wear to look professional. Her long dark hair fell around her shoulders as she played, and her face showed complete concentration and joy. But what shocked Dr. Vasquez most was the woman's technique. Her hand position was perfect. Her movements were efficient and graceful. She played with the kind of musical maturity that usually took decades to develop. This was not the playing of someone who had learned piano as a hobby. This was the playing of someone who had been trained to be a professional musician. Sarah reached the climactic section of the prelude, where the music builds to an overwhelming emotional peak. Her hands moved with tremendous power, drawing sounds from the piano that filled the entire lobby with glorious music. The volume was incredible, but every note was perfectly clear and controlled. The crowd in the lobby was now completely silent except for the music. Some people had tears in their eyes. Others stood with their mouths open in amazement. Everyone understood that they were witnessing something special, something that they would remember for the rest of their lives. Sarah played the final section of the prelude with devastating emotional impact. The music seemed to tell a story of struggle, triumph, loss, and redemption. Her interpretation was so powerful and personal that it felt like she was sharing her deepest emotions with everyone in the room. As Sarah approached the famous ending of the piece, the tension in the room became almost unbearable. Everyone knew that something extraordinary was about to happen. Sarah built the music to its final climax, her hands flying across the keys with incredible intensity. Then suddenly it was over. Sarah played the final thunderous chords of the prelude with perfect timing and maximum impact. The last notes rang out through the lobby like bells, then faded slowly into silence. For several seconds, the lobby remained completely quiet. People seemed to be holding their breath, as if they were afraid that making any sound might break the spell that Sarah's music had cast over them. Then the applause began. It started with one person clapping, then quickly spread through the entire crowd. But this was not ordinary applause. This was the kind of enthusiastic, overwhelming response that people give to truly great performances. People were not just clapping, they were cheering, whistling, and calling out words of appreciation. Some people in the crowd were crying. Others were laughing with joy. Everyone was smiling. The applause went on, as if people could not express how much Sarah's performance had moved them. Sarah sat at the piano bench, breathing heavily from the physical and emotional effort of playing such demanding music. She looked out at a crowd of people who were applauding her, and for the first time, she realized what she had done. She had revealed her secret. After 15 years of hiding her musical abilities, she had played with all her skill and passion in front of a room full of strangers. There was no going back now. Everyone who had heard her play knew that she was not just a hotel cleaning lady who could play a few simple songs. She was a serious musician with extraordinary talent. Sarah felt scared and exhilarated at the same time. She did not know what would happen next, but she knew that her life had just changed forever. The applause continued for several minutes. Sarah sat at the piano bench, overwhelmed by the response from the crowd. She had never experienced anything like this before. When she was a child, she had played for small audiences at school recitals and community events. But this was different. This was a room full of adults who clearly understood music, and they were responding to her playing with genuine amazement and emotion. Dr. Elena Vasquez was among the people applauding most enthusiastically. As a retired piano professor, she had heard thousands of students play over her 40-year career. She had worked with students who went on to become famous concert pianists. She had heard performances at Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. But she had rarely heard anyone play with the combination of technical skill and emotional depth that this young woman had just displayed. When the applause finally began to fade, Dr. Vasquez knew she had to speak with the pianist. She made her way through the crowd toward the piano, her heart still racing from the incredible performance she had just witnessed. "Excuse me," Dr. Vasquez said as she approached Sarah. "That was absolutely extraordinary. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, a retired piano professor from the Berklee College of Music. I had to tell you how moved I was by your performance." Sarah looked up at the elegant older woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She could see intelligence and warmth in Dr. Vasquez's face, and something else too, the look of someone who understood music at a very deep level. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. "I'm Sarah Martinez. I was just helping out tonight because the regular pianist is sick." Dr. Vasquez stared at Sarah in disbelief. "Helping out? My dear, what you just played requires years of serious training. That Rachmaninoff prelude is one of the most challenging pieces in the classical repertoire. Where did you study piano?" Sarah felt her cheeks grow warm. She was not used to being the center of attention, especially from someone who was clearly an expert in music. "I didn't really study formally," she said. "My grandmother taught me when I was little. I had to stop playing when I was 12. "You had to stop playing?" Dr. Vasquez asked, her voice filled with concern. "Why? With talent like yours, you should have been in the best music schools in the country." Sarah looked down at her hands, which were still resting on the piano keys. This was the conversation she had been afraid of having. "My family couldn't afford lessons," she said simply. "When my grandmother died, we had to sell her piano. I've been working at the hotel for 3 years. I clean rooms during the day." Dr. Vasquez felt her heart break a little. In her decades of teaching, she had seen many talented students struggle with financial difficulties. But she had never met anyone with Sarah's level of natural ability who had been forced to abandon music completely. It seemed like a terrible waste of an extraordinary gift. "Sarah," Dr. Vasquez said gently, "what you have is incredibly rare. Most people spend their entire lives trying to develop the kind of musical sensitivity and technical skill that you displayed tonight. You can't let this talent go to waste." Other people in the crowd were also trying to talk to Sarah. The businessman who had been making phone calls introduced himself as James Chun, the CEO of a tech company. "I've heard Lang Lang and Yo Ma perform," he said. "Your playing belongs on that level. Have you ever considered a professional career in music?" The music teacher from the group of women came forward as well. "I teach at the local university," she said. "I work with piano majors every day. You play better than most of them. How is it possible that you're not performing professionally?" Sarah felt overwhelmed by all the attention and questions. For 15 years, she had kept her musical abilities secret. She had gotten used to thinking of herself as just a regular person who happened to have played piano when she was young. Now, suddenly, all these knowledgeable people were telling her that she had exceptional talent. Mr. Peterson finally made his way through the crowd to the piano. Sarah looked at him nervously, wondering if he was angry that she had not followed his instructions to play simple background music. Instead, She saw amazement and something that looked like pride on his face. "Sarah," Mr. Peterson said, "I had no idea you could play like that. What you just did was incredible. The entire hotel is talking about it. Guests are calling the front desk asking who the pianist is. People on the street are asking if they can come in just to listen to you play." "I'm sorry I didn't play the simple music you asked for," Sarah said. "I got carried away." "I understand if you're upset," Mr. Peterson laughed. "Upset?" "Sarah, what you just did was the most amazing thing that's happened in this hotel in the 10 years I've been managing it." "I'm not upset at all. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in a permanent position as our evening pianist." Sarah's eyes widened. "A permanent position?" "The regular pianist we have is good," Mr. Peterson said, "but what you just did was extraordinary. I've never seen guests respond to music like that. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you the position of head pianist for the Grand Plaza Hotel. The salary would be 3 times what you're making now in housekeeping." Sarah felt dizzy. A few hours ago, she had been a hotel cleaning lady. Now she was being offered a job as a professional pianist. It seemed impossible. Dr. Vasquez had been listening to this conversation with growing excitement. "Sarah," she said, "a hotel position would be wonderful, but I think you should consider even bigger possibilities. With your talent, you could be performing in concert halls, you could be recording albums, you could be touring the world." "But I don't have formal training," Sarah protested. "I don't have a music degree. I don't even own a good piano." "Those are just practical problems," Dr. Vasquez said. "They can be solved. What you have, that musical gift you just displayed, cannot be taught. It's something you're born with. Most of my students would give anything to have what you have naturally." James Chun, the businessman, pulled out his phone. "I'm going to record a video of you playing and send it to some friends of mine in the music industry," he said. "They need to hear what you can do." "Wait," Sarah said, feeling panicked. "I don't know if I'm ready for all this. A few hours ago, I was just cleaning hotel rooms. This is all happening so fast." Dr. Vasquez sat down next to Sarah on the piano bench. "I understand this must be overwhelming," she said kindly. "But Sarah, talents like yours don't come along very often. I've been around music my entire life, and I can tell you with complete certainty that you have something special. Something that the world needs to hear." Sarah looked around at all the faces watching her. These were successful, knowledgeable people who understood music. They were all telling her the same thing, that she had extraordinary talent that should not be wasted. For the first time in 15 years, Sarah began to believe that maybe her childhood dreams of being a professional musician were not impossible after all. Maybe this moment, this unexpected evening at the hotel piano, was not just a coincidence. Maybe it was the beginning of the life she was meant to live. "What would I need to do?" Sarah asked Dr. Vasquez quietly. The older woman smiled. "First, we need to get you back to playing regularly. Then we need to work on expanding your repertoire and polishing your technique. After that, we start looking at performance opportunities and possibly recording. But Sarah, the most important thing is that you never stop playing again. The world has been missing your music for 15 years? That's long enough." Sarah nodded slowly. She was scared, but she was also more excited than she had been in years. For the first time since her grandmother died, she felt like she might have a future in music. She looked at the beautiful piano in front of her, then at all the people who were encouraging her to pursue her dreams. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to let the world hear what she could do. The next few weeks passed like a whirlwind for Sarah. Dr. Vasquez had given her business card and phone number that very first night, along with a promise to help Sarah navigate the world of professional music. "Call me tomorrow," she had said. "We have a lot of work to do." Sarah did call the next day, and Dr. Vasquez immediately began making plans. The first step was getting Sarah access to a good piano for practice. Dr. Vasquez arranged for Sarah to use a practice room at the local university during the evenings. It had a beautiful grand piano, similar to the one at the hotel. Mr. Peterson had kept his word about offering Sarah a new position. She was no longer cleaning hotel rooms. Instead, she was the Grand Plaza Hotel's featured evening pianist, performing Tuesday through Saturday from 6 to 9 o'clock. The salary was indeed 3 times what she had been earning in housekeeping, which meant Sarah could finally help her family more and have some money left over for her music education. The response to Sarah's playing had been overwhelming. Word spread quickly through the city about the amazing pianist at the Grand Plaza Hotel. The lobby was packed every evening with people who came specifically to hear Sarah play. Mr. Peterson had to arrange for additional seating because so many people wanted to listen. Local newspapers wrote articles about Sarah. The headline in the City Tribune read, "Hotel housekeeper becomes musical sensation overnight." Sarah was embarrassed by all the attention, but Dr. Vasquez told her it was good for her career. "This is how the music world works," Dr. Vasquez explained during one of their weekly meetings. "People need to know who you are before they can appreciate what you do. These articles and the crowds at the hotel are building your reputation." Dr. Vasquez had also been working behind the scenes to create opportunities for Sarah. She had contacted old colleagues and friends in the music industry, sending them videos of Sarah's performances that James Chun and other hotel guests had recorded on their phones. The response from music professionals was immediate and enthusiastic. A talent agent from New York called Dr. Vasquez after watching Sarah play the Rachmaninoff Prelude. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. "Where has this woman been hiding? We need to get her into concert halls immediately." But Dr. Vasquez was careful and protective of Sarah. She knew that Sarah needed time to build her confidence and expand her repertoire before she was ready for major performance venues. "She has incredible natural talent," Dr. Vasquez told the agent, "but she's been away from serious music for 15 years. We need to move at the right pace." Every evening after Sarah finished her hotel performance, she would go to the university practice room and work with Dr. Vasquez. They were systematically going through the classical piano repertoire, refreshing pieces Sarah had learned as a child and teaching her new ones. Sarah was amazed at how quickly the music came back to her. Pieces that she had not played in 15 years felt familiar under her fingers after just a few practice sessions. Dr. Vasquez was amazed too. "I've never seen anyone relearn music this quickly," she told Sarah. "Your musical memory is extraordinary." They worked on batch inventions and fugues to strengthen Sarah's technical foundation. They studied Chopin etudes to develop her virtuosity. They explored Debussy and Ravel to expand her understanding of different musical styles. Sarah absorbed everything like a sponge that had been dry for too long. One evening in her 3rd week as the hotel pianist, Sarah noticed a man in the lobby who looked familiar. He was well-dressed and was taking notes while she played. After her performance, he approached the piano. "Miss Martinez, I'm David Stern from Classical Music Today magazine," he said. "I've been hearing amazing things about your playing. Would you be willing to do an interview for our publication?" Sarah looked for Dr. Vasquez, who was sitting in her usual seat near the piano. The older woman nodded encouragingly. "I think that would be wonderful," Sarah said. The interview took place the following afternoon in the hotel lobby. David Stern was a knowledgeable music journalist who had interviewed famous pianists all over the world. He was genuinely impressed by Sarah's story and her musical abilities. "Tell me about your musical background," he said. "I understand you're largely self-taught." Sarah explained about learning from her grandmother, about having to stop playing when her grandmother died, and about working as a hotel housekeeper for the past 3 years. David Stern took careful notes, clearly fascinated by her unusual path to music. "What are your goals now?" he asked. "Where do you see your musical career going?" Sarah thought carefully before answering. A month ago, she would not have believed she had a musical career at all. Now, with Dr. Vasquez's guidance and the encouragement of so many people, she was beginning to dream bigger. "I want to keep learning and growing as a musician," she said. "Dr. Vasquez is helping me prepare for more challenging performance opportunities. Eventually, I'd love to perform in concert halls and share my music with larger audiences. The article appeared in Classical Music Today 2 weeks later. It was a beautiful piece that told Sarah's story with sensitivity and highlighted her remarkable musical journey. The headline read, "From Housekeeping to Concert Hall, The Extraordinary Musical Journey of Sarah Martinez." The magazine article brought national attention to Sarah's story. Music lovers from other cities began traveling to hear her play at the Grand Plaza Hotel. A classical music radio station in Chicago called and asked if they could broadcast one of her performances live. More importantly for Sarah's career, several major music venues reached out to Dr. Vasquez about booking Sarah for performances. The director of the city's symphony hall called personally to discuss having Sarah perform a solo recital. "I think she's ready," Dr. Vasquez told Sarah during one of their practice sessions. "You've been working incredibly hard, and your playing has reached a level where audiences in major venues will appreciate what you can do." Sarah felt nervous but excited. "Do you really think so? I still feel like I'm learning so much." "Sarah, you'll be learning for your entire musical career," Dr. Vasquez said. "That's what makes great musicians great. They never stop growing. But you already have something that many professional pianists never develop, a direct emotional connection to the music that moves people deeply." They decided that Sarah's first major concert would be a solo recital at the City Symphony Hall. Dr. Vasquez helped her choose a program that would showcase her strengths: Bach, Chopin, Debussy, and Rachmaninoff. It would be challenging music, but Sarah had been working on all of these pieces and was playing them beautifully. The concert was scheduled for 2 months away. That gave Sarah time to polish her program and build her confidence. But Dr. Vasquez had another surprise for her. "I've been in touch with a friend of mine who works for Steinway & Sons," Dr. Vasquez said. "They've heard about you and want to meet. If things go well, they might be interested in providing you with an instrument and possibly even a recording contract." Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. Steinway was the most prestigious piano company in the world. Their instruments were played by the greatest pianists on earth. The idea that they might be interested in her seemed impossible. "Why would they be interested in me?" Sarah asked. "Because talent like yours is incredibly rare," Dr. Vasquez said. "And because your story is inspiring? You represent something that the classical music world needs, proof that extraordinary musical ability can emerge from anywhere, regardless of someone's background or circumstances." Sarah went home that night feeling overwhelmed by how much her life had changed. Just 2 months ago, she had been cleaning hotel rooms and dreaming about music in secret. Now she was preparing for a major concert debut and being courted by one of the most prestigious companies in the music world. She called her sister Maria to share the news. "Sarah, this is incredible," Maria said. "I always knew you were special, but I never imagined anything like this would happen." "Sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming," Sarah admitted. "It all seems too good to be true." "It's not too good to be true," Maria said firmly. "You've worked hard for this, even when you didn't know it was possible. You deserve every bit of success that's coming your way." Sarah hung up the phone and sat at the old upright piano in her bedroom. She played a simple melody, thinking about her grandmother and how proud she would be. Then she thought about the concert hall performance that was coming up, and all the possibilities that lay ahead. For the first time in 15 years, Sarah felt like she was exactly where she belonged. 6 months had passed since that magical evening when Sarah first played at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Now, as she stood backstage at the City Symphony Hall, wearing an elegant black concert gown that Dr. Vasquez had helped her choose, Sarah could hardly believe how far she had come. The concert hall was sold out. All 2,500 seats were filled with people who had come to hear the woman the newspapers were calling the most remarkable musical discovery in decades. Sarah peeked through the curtain and saw familiar faces in the audience: Mr. Peterson from the hotel, James Chen the businessman, the music teacher from the university, and dozens of other people who had been in the hotel lobby that first night. Dr. Vasquez stood beside her, radiating pride and confidence. "How do you feel?" she asked Sarah, Nervous, Sarah admitted, but also excited. I keep thinking about my grandmother. I wish she could see this. She can see it, Dr. Vasquez said gently. And she's proud of you. Tonight you're not just performing. For this audience, you're honoring her memory and all the music teachers who believe that talent should never be wasted. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of preparation and opportunities. Sarah's debut recital had been postponed twice to allow for more preparation time, but also because so many exciting things were happening that Dr. Vasquez wanted to coordinate. Carefully, the meeting with Steinway & Sons had exceeded everyone's expectations. The company executives were so impressed with Sarah's playing and her story that they offered her both an instrument, partnership, and a recording contract. Sarah now had a beautiful Steinway grand piano in her apartment, replacing the old upright that had served her so well. More importantly, Steinway had funded the recording of Sarah's first album, Rediscovered. The album featured the pieces that had launched her career, the Rachmaninoff Prelude, Chopin Nocturnes, and Bach Inventions, along with new works that showcased her growing repertoire. The album was being released nationally next month, with pre-orders already exceeding 50,000 copies. Classical music critics who had heard advance copies were giving it outstanding reviews. The critic for the New York Times wrote, "Sarah Martinez plays with a combination of technical mastery and emotional honesty that recalls the great pianists of the Golden Age. Her interpretation of Rachmaninoff is particularly stunning, passionate yet controlled, virtuosic yet deeply musical." Tonight's concert was being broadcast live on national public radio. Music lovers across the country would hear Sarah's symphony. Hall debut. Several major venues had already contacted Dr. Vasquez about booking Sarah for future performances, including Carnegie Hall in New York and the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., but perhaps the most meaningful development had been the establishment of the Sarah Martinez Music Foundation. With help from James Chun and other supporters she had met that first night at the hotel, Sarah had created a scholarship program for young musicians from low-income families. The foundation provided piano lessons, instruments, and financial support to ensure that talented children would not have to abandon music because of economic circumstances. "I don't want any child to go through what I went through," Sarah had said when announcing the foundation. "Music is too precious to be limited by money." The foundation had already helped 12 young pianists in its first 6 months. Sarah personally visited each scholarship recipient, playing for them and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. Seeing the joy and hope in these children's faces reminded Sarah every day of why music mattered so much. Maria and Carlos, Sarah's siblings, were in the front row tonight. Carlos had graduated from college and was now working as an engineer, but he had never forgotten how his sister had sacrificed her own dreams to help pay for his education. Maria was in her first year of college, studying to become a music teacher. Inspired by Sarah's journey, "Ladies and gentlemen," the concert hall announcer said over the sound system, "please welcome pianist Sarah Martinez." Sarah walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The concert hall was magnificent, with perfect acoustics and a beautiful Steinway concert grand piano waiting for her. She sat at the bench, adjusted her position, and looked out at the audience. For a moment, Sarah thought about that frightened young woman who had cleaned hotel rooms just 6 months ago. That woman had believed her musical dreams were over forever. She had convinced herself that she was just an ordinary person who happened to have played piano when she was young. But tonight, Sarah knew better. She understood now that her talent was not something she used to have, it was something she was. The 15 years of silence had not destroyed her musical abilities. They had only hidden them temporarily. The music had always been there, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Sarah began her program with Bach's Italian Concerto, a piece that showcased her technical precision and musical intelligence. From the first notes, the audience knew they were hearing something special. Sarah's playing was crystal clear, with every note perfectly placed and every phrase beautifully shaped. She moved through her program with growing confidence, playing Chopin's Ballade No. 1 with stunning emotional depth and Debussy's Clair de Lune with exquisite delicacy. Each piece demonstrated different aspects of her musical personality, showing the audience the breadth of her artistic capabilities. For her final piece, Sarah had chosen the Rachmaninoff Prelude in sharp minor, the same piece that had revealed her true abilities that first night at the hotel. As she began the dramatic opening chords, Sarah felt the same joy and freedom she had experienced 6 months ago. This was who she was. This was what she was meant to do. The performance was even more powerful than her first hotel rendition. Sarah had grown tremendously as a musician over the past 6 months, and her interpretation was deeper and more sophisticated. She played with the confidence of someone who belonged on this stage, who had earned her place among the world's finest pianists. When Sarah played the final thunderous chords of the Rachmaninoff Prelude, the audience erupted in the longest standing ovation in the symphony hall's history. People cheered, whistled, and called for more. Sarah took bow after bow, tears of joy streaming down her face. For her encore, Sarah chose to play Moon River, the simple song she had been asked to play that first night at the hotel. But now she played it as she had learned to play it. Over the past 6 months, with all the beauty and sophistication she could bring to it. It was a tribute to where her journey had begun and a promise of where it would lead. After the concert, Sarah was surrounded by well-wishers backstage. Music critics, fellow musicians, and fans all wanted to congratulate her on her spectacular debut. But the moment that meant the most to Sarah was when Dr. Vasquez embraced her with tears in her eyes. "I am so proud of you," Dr. Vasquez said. "Tonight you proved that talent will always find a way to shine, no matter what obstacles it faces." As Sarah drove home that night, still wearing her concert gown, she thought about everything that had happened since that evening 6 months ago when she had simply offered to help with a problem at work. She had not planned to become a professional pianist. She had not expected to record albums or perform in major concert halls. She had certainly not imagined starting a foundation to help other young musicians, but life had given her a second chance at her dreams, and she had seized it with both hands. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message from Maria. "I watched the live broadcast online. You were amazing. Grandma would be so proud." Sarah smiled as she pulled into her driveway. Tomorrow she would begin preparing for her next concert. Next month she would fly to New York to perform at Carnegie Hall in the fall. She would begin recording her second album, but tonight she would simply sit at her beautiful Steinway piano and play music for the pure joy of it, the way she had when she was a little girl learning from her grandmother. Because no matter how far her career took her, no matter how many stages she performed on, the most important thing would always be the music itself, the magical connection between her heart, her hands, and the keys that could transform simple notes into something that touched people's souls. Sarah Martinez had rediscovered her music, and in doing so she had rediscovered herself. The cleaning lady who had hidden her talents for 15 years was gone forever. In her place was an artist who would spend the rest of her life sharing the gift she had been born to give.